The following is a presentation by the Production 2 classes at Homewood Flossmoor High School. It's an in-depth report on topics that matter to you. Brought to you by WHFH 88.5 FM Flossmoor. Now, here is Documentary 2019.
Imagine having blackouts where you don't know where or who you are. Imagine being content and happy one day, then waking up feeling depressed the next. Imagine attacking a loved one because you confused a friend for a foe. Well, Jarrett Hunt, a veteran who served in the United States Army for many years, lives with this every day. It's called PTSD, and it doesn't just affect him, but has a major impact on his family, one that will probably last a lifetime. Today, we will hear from a 20-year war veteran, as well as his family's experience with having a loved one with PTSD. All this and more coming up on today's WHFH radio documentary, The War After Service, on 88.5 FM. Welcome to today's documentary on WHFH 88.5 FM, The War After Service. Post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD for short, is a mental disorder that can occur in people who have experienced a traumatic event, such as war. Jarrett Hunt, a U.S. veteran, explains that there are many symptoms of PTSD that he experiences.
I have many different little issues. There are days where I have bad anxiety. There are days where I have flashbacks. There are days where I am just extremely angry, being real snappy. There are days or moments where I can be extremely depressed for no reason. So it's literally dealing with an ever-changing nightmare for the rest of your life, pretty much.
Jarrett served in the United States Army for 20 years of his life, starting at age 18. He traveled to many places throughout the world. However, his mother, Karen Hunt, says that when he was serving in Afghanistan, a suicide bomber had attacked Jarrett's base, causing his PTSD.
You need to understand that these young people, Jarrett was 18 when he went into the military, see things, do things that neither you nor I could possibly imagine unless we have done it. Their base got bombed in Kabul, and a sergeant who was attached to the Army, was attached to this unit, it was a National Guard, he died instantly, and the other sergeant died 10 days later. The other sergeant was a female with an 18-month-old daughter. And what Jarrett kept saying is, it should have been me, it should have been me, it should have been me.
The suicide bombers were a complete surprise, and many people were hurt and killed in this attack. There was nothing Jarrett could have done. However, he still felt extremely guilty when he realized that he survived, when a young mother did not. Jarrett's girlfriend of many years, Jennifer Brown, explains that Jarrett has a certain kind of PTSD.
His is what they call survivor's remorse. And what that is they basically blame themselves for that person dying. Even though he had no control over it, they still blame themselves. And that's hard to deal with.
Jarrett, as well as many other Americans, have to deal with PTSD every day. An estimated 8% of Americans, which is 24.4 million people, have PTSD at any given time. Most people don't realize that anyone could have PTSD. It is an invisible disorder, unless that person is set off. Jarrett Hunt's mother, Karen Hunt, says that her son's disorder is invisible to most people, unless he has an episode.
You can't tell my son has PTSD. When you look at him, he looks like a normal person. It's not until he has one of his episodes that you're wondering what's wrong with this kid. If he had a hard day, then we could have a monster walking through the door who put holes through the wall, who kicked in doors because something had set him off.
Like the many people with PTSD, Jarrett has no control over when, where, or how these episodes start. Jarrett says that almost anything can cause an episode.
You never know what's going to trigger your problems. It can be a sight, a sound, a smell. You will find sometimes certain things will set you off, and then other times they won't. Sometimes things that have never set you off all of a sudden will get you going.
People with PTSD often get confused and don't remember where they are. For example, war veterans have episodes where they think they are back in combat and everyone around them are enemies. This has happened many times for Jarrett, and sometimes his family are the ones that are caught in the crossfire. Karen Hunt has witnessed many of his episodes and says that there have been times where Jarrett has thought that his own father was the enemy and physically attacked him.
He started yelling at my daughter-in-law, and my husband got between him and my daughter-in-law, and he said, "Son, you need to step back." Well, Jarrett put his hands on my husband. Well, at that point, Jarrett was seeing Richard as a combatant, and the language was unreal that was coming out of his mouth, and he thought my husband was the enemy. Richard pushed him through the bushes so the kids couldn't see what was going on, and when I got to the end of the side, his father was almost blue. He was choking him so bad. And I hit him, and I pulled him, and I beat on him, and I finally got him off of his father. He didn't realize it was his father he was choking, and I'm screaming at him, "Jarrett, I can't do this. My chest is killing me. You can't do this anymore." And with that, he dropped to his side in a fetal position and cried and cried and cried. Had to do 3 days in service and finally realized he had hit the bottom of the barrel and he was going to have to do something for himself.
This was one of the worst episodes Jarrett has ever experienced. Jarrett's family was very worried about him after that episode. However, they are very understanding of his PTSD. Richard Hunt, Jarrett's father, says that when he was attacked, he had to remind himself that it wasn't really Jarrett who was attacking him.
Jarrett actually attacked me one day, and that was kind of, definitely just not Jarrett. And it wasn't Jarrett that attacked me. It was the PTSD. There's no doubt about it. I realized it was not my son that was attacking me. It was my son attacking, the enemy. Jarrett feels terrible to this day about it.
This doesn't just happen with Jarrett's family. Many loved ones of those with PTSD suffer along with them. Dessa Bergen-Ciso, author and psychology professor, says that there is a significant impact on people who witness their loved ones' PTSD.
And it also impacts family members and the community at large. And so there's primary effects of trauma from those people who are fighting, but then there's also trauma that impacts the civilians in those communities, and then secondary trauma that impacts the family members and society.
Not many people know about or realize that secondhand PTSD exists. When in public, Jarrett's loved ones are constantly worried that any small thing will trigger an episode, and Jarrett might hurt himself or somebody else. After Jarrett had started hurting his loved ones, he knew he needed serious help. Jarrett then decided to adopt a dog through One Pet, One Vet, an organization that matches people suffering from PTSD with trained dogs, where Jarrett adopted Mutt. Mutt has helped Jarrett cope with his PTSD in many ways, but he has also made the lives of Jarrett's family members a lot easier. They can now relax a bit because they know that Mutt will warn them and stop Jarrett if he were to have an episode. Karen Hunt explains the impact Mutt has made in Jarrett's life as well as her own.
And there isn't a thing that you can do for him or I can do for him. But you know what did do for him? His dog Mutt. They seem to have a sense of what they need. But we as a family felt the same pain and the same agony. And I have said it many, many times. If it wasn't for One Pet, One Vet, I would have lost my son.
Stay tuned to learn how to help a loved one who has PTSD and how Jarrett has learned to make a new start despite it. This is A War After Service on WHFH 88.5 FM. Welcome back to WHFH 88.5 FM. This is A War After Service. Jarrett still has a long journey ahead of him, and he will still have to live with PTSD for the rest of his life. However, thanks to Mutt and his loved ones, he has been able to get a steady job in public, reconnect with his family, and live a long life. If you or a loved one has PTSD, call 1-866-208-5658. I'll say that again, 1-866-208-5658. For more information, I would like to thank the sound engineer and producer, Eliana Dasici, and the WHFH radio station. I'm your announcer, Ben Hilgen. Thank you for listening to today's radio documentary, The War After Service, on WHFH 88.5 FM Flossmoor.